Hi, everyone. Carl Steinbeck here. Just want to jump on tonight to talk about the issue I've been hearing a lot of chatter on, and some folks asking me what I think about whether we're going to get a smaller courtroom or not. I briefly touched on it an episode or two ago, but there came out this docket notification that it looked like it was scheduled for 3B, courtroom 3B there at the Leon County Courthouse. I'm talking about the jury trial for murder charges and other charges against Donna Adelson. And this trial is scheduled for September 16th. That's when the jury selection will begin. And as soon as jury selection is over and the jury's been seated, that's when they'll go ahead and start the arguments or the opening statements and the witnesses thereafter for the state. So the the issue has some people upset as well about trying to move to a smaller courtroom. This is not fair to the spectators, the public, and the courtroom size difference is like seating capability is 105 from what I'm hearing down to a difference of only 21 in the smaller courtroom. And so I was just going to tell you from my perspective, from a strategic perspective as a trial attorney, if I'm on the prosecution side, it's actually more in my favor to have a smaller courtroom, and I can explain why. And that has to do with the fact that in any kind of jury trial I've had so many of them over the years, and includes state, federal, and also military forums. And I can tell you, the smaller the courtroom or the smaller the hearing room, let's say if it's if I'm having a trial in Iraq or a trial in some kind of other proceeding like a separation board for officers, I can tell you the smaller the confined quarters that you have the proceedings in, the better it helps the prosecution if you got a guilty party. Because what happens, and I'm thinking of one case in particular, the accused was sitting there, and he was so close to the jurors that it was very uncomfortable for him. He was squirmish. He couldn't look him in the eye. He was sweating profusely. I mean, he was like a nervous wreck during the whole proceedings. And I was prosecuting that case, and it's sort of like weird being in a smaller room like that. It was probably like 15 by 25. It had a big conference table in it. But I thought it really worked to my advantage because the jurors were that much closer to the accused or defendant, as you may call them, also in other proceedings. And so I just thought that same thing. The more I thought about it, I'm thinking, you know what, this is going to be just like that. And then I contrast it also to like in big federal courtrooms where you got super tall ceilings. The ceilings may be 25 feet tall, and they're just ginormous rooms. You walk into them, and the defendant's sitting so far away from the jurors usually that they don't really notice the defendant and all the mannerisms, the body language that the defendant is giving off. So that works to the advantage of a guilty party. So if I'm representing somebody that's probably more likely not guilty of the charge, I'm still obviously going to fight it and make the state prove their case. But to me, that's better because if I have a client that's not able to look as good when being in close proximity to jurors, that's the benefit for me because they're not going to be focused on studying them as much. Now they're obviously going to be looking at the defendant more than any other um, person in the proceedings other than the attorneys, but they really zero in on the defendant to really see what their body language is. Do they look guilty? They're studying them for their reaction to different things that people say on the witness stand. And so they got a really steely-eyed look to see how is this person reacting? Are they acting guilty or innocent? And that's why I find goes on all the time is they're constantly wanting to size up the defendant and they're conjuring in their mind is this person acting guilty or are they acting innocent? And so the closer you have that proximity of the defendant to the jurors, the more they're going to look over there, number one, and the more they're going to see that they are not acting like like an innocent person. So I think with Donna's situation, Donna knows she's guilty. She's not going to be on her best behavior. She's going to be acting in some ways like her normal self, which I can tell you in a Tallahassee setting, it's not going to go over well. Her type of Queens, New York style of persona is not going to go over well with the jury. That's a huge, huge issue that is insurmountable for the defense. So despite her age, the way she comes across is she's not going to have that likability factor. So you got the likability factor for Georgia and Sarah on the prosecution end. Roshbaum, I would say, does not have the likability factor. I don't know about this Alex Morris guy, but and I'm not seen him in court before, but let's say he does even half of the work that Rashbaum normally would do by himself. It's still going to be a session where they're they may have a likability issue on everyone on the defense side. So I'm not sure. Perhaps Alex Morris is more likable to jurors than Daniel Rashbaum. And so what I can say is that whatever the judge decides, he may not give his ruling on that motion for the smaller courtroom than 3G. 3G is a much larger courtroom, as I said. And I've been in that courtroom down there with John for Charlie's trial, and I can tell you that the ceilings are not that tall like you'd think in a normal state courthouse. The ceilings are probably about 9 or 10 feet tall. The courtroom is shaped more like a elongated rectangle, and the dimensions, my estimates, are probably 70 by 30 and or maybe 80 by 30, something like that. So it's uh it's got a lot of room to hold a lot of people, but there is a lot of depth. If you're in the spectator section, you're going to see a lot of distance between you and the judge and the witnesses. You're going to be much closer to the jury and also the counsel that are there. So anyway, for those that are concerned about the judge moving this to a smaller courtroom, I'm not concerned about it. And like I say, as a prosecutor, I'd actually welcome it. It's not going to make a difference in the end. She's going to be convicted in either courtroom, but I just think the having the jury be that much closer, and that's one of the things I do. I can tell you as a trial attorney, I'm always thinking the second, third, fourth, fifth, et cetera, order effects, as we say in the military, or sort of like you might say the domino effect, or the chess moves and what the opponent's going to be able to make based on your moves. So you got to think these things way out ahead, and really be able to have the ability to foresee what is the likely outcome. So in this particular case, I can tell you the likely outcome is they're probably going to come to a quicker verdict. They're going to have their minds made up quicker about how Donna comes across in the trial, and they're going to be probably closer to her when she's on the witness stand. So if you got the state and you got all these wonderful prosecution witnesses, you got the star power like people like Jeff Lacasse, you got the Sergeant Corbett to testify and just basically just have such an amazing, detailed demonstration of how all these Florida Adelsons were scheming and planning this murder of Professor Markell. So, and I think that's going to work out just fine. For other folks that want to get in the courtroom, I do not have the specifics on what you should do to actually make sure you get entry in the courtroom. I'm not aware if they actually have a overflow room, but I can tell you the earlier you get there, the more of a chance you're going to have to be seated. I do think it's sort of like an elitist type motion to say you don't want to have a court in a larger proceeding. Normally, most people want a public trial. I mean, that's sort of like the evidence that the state has to prove their case to the public, and the public can make scrutiny and see that the state is maybe not doing justice to the accused. And so it's really an odd motion from that perspective. It seems like it is something coming from Donna Adelson herself. She wants minimum number of spectators there, and so it doesn't really make much sense from a legal standpoint. From a justice standpoint, I would say the bigger courtroom is a better venue. And after all, it is in Tallahassee. It's been over 10 years ago that Professor Markell was murdered. And so to say that you're going to have a smaller venue to deny the locals there from taking part in these proceedings, it's really nonsensical, I would say. And so I would estimate that the judge will deny that motion. But like I say, if he doesn't, I'm not going to sweat it, because the bottom line is it'll actually work the prosecution's advantage, an advantage which they don't actually need. So, and I do think with media folks, for other YouTubers that may be down there, like John's going to be there. And so I think with them having media credentials, that's not going to be a problem for media to get access to that. So I don't see that being an issue for us being able to do the live streaming from there. So with that, I can also mention something about the witness list I saw today. The prosecution supplemented their witness list, um, and they mentioned some notes and whatnot of some of the exhibit list. They mentioned some notes from different parties, and including things that former friends of Wendy Adelson. So there's some cracks there that Wendy Adelson obviously is facing now. As more and more Adelsons get convicted, you're going to see more and more people fleeing. And I can say that from the earlier witness list that the defense submitted, the strategy I would use as a prosecution to basically go in there with these witnesses. You have strategy of either deposing them or interviewing outside of a deposition. And so if you don't want to interview them in a deposition, at least go find out what they're going to say. You don't want to be uh, caught not having interviewed them before trial. So you would think that the prosecution might want to get them under a deposition, get them down there if they're from South Miami, get them in the FBI office there in Miramar, like we had for Harvey and Donna last fall that they try to back out of. So I would put these witnesses through grueling questioning and make sure you're turning every stone. And the nice thing about it is what I've found in every single case I've worked that's really prevented a lot of cases from going to trials when I'm either prosecution or defense, whatever side the truth bears out. I wind up questioning what was said to whom and when and why and how. And those kind of things, the statements that the Adelsons have given to their friends, those are going to come back to bite them if the prosecution does their homework. So there's no way they're not going to have witnesses that you could possibly flip on them. The way you could ask them questions about what did they tell you about the what's going on, what happened to Professor Markell, how they would tell them that they don't want to talk about it. Their lawyers tell them not to talk about it. But there's other weird mannerisms and stuff like that. That if you start pulling back on the thread, you're going to find those kind of things. Those kind of witnesses can be flipped. So many times I've taken defense witnesses and actually either neutralized them or taken them to my advantage based on my questioning. And some of them actually just back out. They don't want to cooperate. They realize they're going to be looked at like a fool on cross examination. So that's also a good thing. So if you don't really show the type of tough questions of the witness you'll be asking in court, they'll come into court more confident. And if you don't know the right questions to cross them on, then you could lose that opportunity to have them either be neutralized or flipped to your advantage. So hopefully the prosecution will do the deep dive homework necessary to develop what these witnesses know about the Adelsons, not that little snippet of maybe 5-10 minutes or 30 minutes or a year or something like that that the defense counsel may try to bring out. So go to the whole big picture. I'd start from cradle to grave. How long have you known these Adelsons? What kind of interaction did you have with them? All that kind of stuff. Ask them about any kind of like how often they met, where were they, how they communicated, and there's going to be some information there that's like I say, that's going to be hurtful to the defense, and they may not wind up even calling them. As we've also seen from Daniel Rashbaum in the past, he had a number of witnesses. He only wound up calling one besides Charlie. So a lot of this could be just puffery, and so it remains to be seen. But I wouldn't be afraid of those witnesses at all. And so what we have here with what was presented today, I would look at that as the same thing. There could be some evidence that's incriminatory against Wendy. I do think that they should definitely go after Wendy more. I've been saying that for a long time now, over a year and a half, that the prosecution should have from the beginning gone after Wendy tougher on cross-examination, not to let her get away with those lies. And I think they'll do that. I think they'll bring out more about her book. I think they'll bring up more about her interactions with different people, especially Jeff Cass leading up to the murder and how she acted afterwards. And so I think that that's going to be followed up by her real rapid arrest shortly after this trial, if not during the trial. But I really think they're going to wait probably by the end of the year to arrest her, and hopefully Harvey as well. But it remains to be seen. If you notice, there's so many people now there that are expecting Wendy to be arrested and prosecuted as she justly deserves. And so that was really not the case a year and a half ago. So I do think I think it's great to see that everyone coming together and coalescing and demanding justice is actually helping, I think, manifest justice for the wonderful Markell family. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up for questions. If you do have questions, if you can do the red emoji, as I've said before, that helps me spot questions for me versus chatter among yourselves. So I'm going to go ahead. It's 8:31. So Brian Shaw is asking, what happens if Charlie's called to testify and he refuses to speak? They can't punish him anymore. Well, technically, if he's ordered to testify, he's supposed to cooperate. But are they going to really charge him again if he doesn't testify? I mean, think about it. He's supposed to be there to testify to help his mom. So, and if he's called by the state, he's got immunity for that. So if he's going to testify one or the other, he probably wants to be called by the state. So, but I anticipate he's going to be called by the state in rebuttal. But yeah, I don't think there's any additional punishment they would pursue if he doesn't cooperate. But I think it's really telling if he doesn't want to take the stand to tell that most astronomically strange story about how this whole so-called extortion event happened, and all these Florida Adelsons were conned by a couple amateurs. Okay, I haven't followed that Telus trial yet. Somebody else sent me something about it. The guy, I guess, did horrible on cross examination. I've not looked at that yet, but I will. But I haven't had a chance to look at that. Uh, yeah, 544 Camp Street. You're asking about Wendy's book. You're making a video on it, wondering if I have a take on it. Yeah, it's really what it does is really project two things: her hatred of Dan Markel, her husband, and also her hatred of Tallahassee, and actually three things: her desperation to get out of there. So those three things are absolutely dynamite for the prosecution. That's something as a defense counsel that is like something you dread, and it's really going to set the scene. Like she was wanting him dead years before. So it looks really bad for Wendy, and that'll definitely be brought up more, I think, in this trial as it rightfully should. And I think it will be really a much larger front and center piece of the prosecution's case against Wendy when she's prosecuted. Julian Nielsen is asking if Wendy's police interview helps her. No, it actually really sinks her. I think the way she comes across is absolutely uh, not consistent with somebody that has just found out that their kid's father has been gunned down. She doesn't have the normal reaction. She doesn't have the normal quest for questions. And I mean, she's actually laughing and giddy in there at different times, and because actually she could actually do that because Detective Isom, after 40 minutes, pretty much threw up his hands and thought she has nothing to do with this, but they still had to process it as if she was, because that's basically how you're supposed to handle those kind of cases. But they bring in a victim witness coordinator and all that kind of stuff, so it's obvious from looking at that they never they pretty much cleared her right there the first 40 minutes. So I just think that Detective Isom, he's not a homicide investigator from what I was told, and so he's basically was over his head. I think that he probably got didn't realize at the time he got snookered by Wendy, and she put her face down so he couldn't see her so-called tears, which I think were totally faked. And you don't go from hating Dan so much to write a book from him a couple years before to then crying and acting like you lost you know, the love of your life or something like that, and it just didn't work out. And remember how she said she drove by once in a while to basically reminisce about the loss of her previous love interest. And so anyway, it just sounded so contrived and ridiculous that you can just any jury's going to see right through these Adelsons that testify, except of course Robert Adelson, the most honorable doctor up in the New York area. And I do hope they bring him down as well to talk about the strange Adelsons of South Florida, how they acted after the murder of Dan Markel, and also the family dynamics, how they worked as a team, what they did, especially Donna, to treat him horribly with his love interest in his lifetime. So I think all that's going to be relevant to show the meddling and the relationships of significant others, and that's sort of a pattern and practice here that could come in under rules of evidence. Life goes. You're asking if I'm covering the whole trial. I may not cover the jury selection. A lot of that is taken outside the presence of us, the viewing audience. Certain people can go back and view it, and so John might be back there, but I will not be there for that part of the trial. Maya Rodriguez Sorensen is asking, do I think the state should switch up who questions Wendy to throw her off? Have Sarah do it instead of Georgia? Yeah, I would definitely do that. I think Sarah is very detailed and more aggressive than Georgia. I think with Wendy, you need the most aggressive person possible. I would say that Georgia has some of her body language to me is not as imposing and intimidating as I would like, and so I do think that Sarah has more of that imposing persona, and just having a different person question you is definitely going to throw somebody off because after all, Wendy has never been questioned by Sarah. She's might have seen tape of her questioning other folks, like her cross examination of Kitty Meng Banwa, but it's something that I've even used as a strategy at cases where I could do a deposition, for example, of the state's um, key witness or the federal's key witness or the military's key witness, the star victim, let's say, of the case. And what I sometimes will do is if I know I'm going to basically destroy them in trial, and I don't think the prosecution is going to like cut a deal with me to get the case dismissed, what I'll do is I'll just wait till trial and ambush them. So the alleged victim, who I know through my research is absolutely lying and making the allegations up against my client. I'll then they will never heard my voice before. They don't know what I look like. They don't know what it's like to get cross-examined by me, and so and they think they're going to go in there and it's going to be a walk in the park, and they're going to be able to tell their life story and have everybody just fall for it like the police did or federal law enforcement. And anyway, once it gets put to real scrutiny, then then they wind up falling apart on the stand. So that's what I do sometimes as well because I do think that's a good strategy. So hopefully they will do that. And I think Sarah has more than earned her keep. As I've said before, I think Sarah can actually try this case by herself. On a big murder case, you always want to have two, but I think Sarah is so detailed and competent she could do it herself. Okay, Letterman's girl, you're asking about what are your thoughts on giving down a smaller room? Just say they granted one of her stupid motions. I mean, if they want to throw her a bone, that's something they do. And like I say, it's going to come back to bite them. It's not going to help them, and it's not an appellate issue. That's they're not going to throw out a murder conviction based on the publicity nature of it. And Judge Everett, if you stop think about it, he's going to run a controlled courtroom there. He's not going to let people try to hijack it. I mean, he even made Ruth Markel leave the courtroom when her phone went off. There's a phone on rule, and or it had to be silenced. And she made that mistake, and bless her heart, she had to stay out until the next recess, which it's like, wow, that's really strict. But when it comes to that, he's got to be strict to both sides. So if there was an Adelson there, they would have treated him the same way as the victim's family. So there's no doubt in my mind he would have done that fairly to everybody across the board. So he can't be preferential, even if it is the victim's family. Sadly to say, but she did get back in later, and so LJ, you're right. The more of the Adelsons they can see in a court, the better for the prosecution. I've said always that every time an Adelson testifies, good things happen for the prosecution and for Justice McKells. That's going to continue here. Liz Elwood's asking if I think Donna will testify. I think in her mind, she thinks she can walk out of there if she tells her story. And just like Charlie thought he could do the same thing. So I think she's going to want to testify whether counsel let her or not. It could be 50-50, but I know Donna wants to testify because she thinks she can work the room just like Charlie did. He got that from her, I think. Becky Ireland, yeah, if Charlie were to flip on Donna and Wendy, could he actually get his sentence reduced? You hope not. I mean, there is that possibility. That's the only shot he's got for really reducing his sentence because he's not going to get any relief on appeal. And so, really, just coming fully clean and testifying before, definitely before Wendy's trial would benefit him. But I just don't see him testifying against mom. I think he's gonna wait to see how it shakes out. And I think once she's convicted, then he'll really consider what Wendy has done to her, his mom, and also to him. And that at that point, I think with the quality of life issues he has in state prison, even though it's South Dakota, it's not as dangerous as is going to be in Florida. I think he's really, going to contemplate either testifying or maybe trying to figure out a way to end his life. I could see that also being some motivation for him. Okay, Jane Kreisman is asking if they charged Wendy first, she would have walked with a plea deal, throwing everyone else under the bus. In my opinion, could all be this was the only way to get them all. Well, I've said along that what you want to do is create an implosion against these defendants as quickly as possible to get them to basically turn on each other. And if you only do daisy chain one at a time type prosecution, you're not forcing them to do that. What they'll do is they'll focus all their attention on the one that's charged at the time. They'll all coalesce around them, and they won't be doing having their own internal disputes or circular firing squad, as I've called it. So the implosion is happening more and more the more Adelsons you charge, but the lag in time, waiting till someone's convicted before you charge them again, is just extremely slow. It's very rare. I've never seen it before. So in any event, so they could have, yeah, if they would have charged Wendy first, maybe she would have gone to trial and not wanted to cooperate. But she's been a good witness for helping the state. I'll tell you that. So you just didn't have to wait, like I say, so long if you're going to do a daisy chain. But what I like about it is if they would have charged them all at one time. That's what I've done as a prosecutor. Yeah, WM is saying, "What's your thought about Louise saying Wendy is the blog?" That statement at trial was kind of like a mic drop. Yeah, what it did is really it really showed the lack of sophistication for Louise. Even though this guy's like a career criminal, even though he helped participate in a murder, there actually is some humanity left in him, and it shows that he's really can't read. He's uneducated. He doesn't know what a blog is. I'm sure he's never heard that word before. So I think he's probably thinking they're trying to say who is the blonde or something like that. So anyway, that's how you interpret it. And anyway, I think that helped the prosecution. And if the prosecution has a witness up there that can make the jury laugh, that is a good thing. I can tell you. So as a whatever side you're on, if you can get the jury to laugh, that always is a favorable sign for you, even if it's spontaneous like that. And basically, um, sort of somewhat endears, if that's the right word, um, the jury to the fact of this guy's, basically a product of a bad growing up childhood environment, and became a career criminal, and just never had a lot of the benefits a lot of other people had in society. Not that that's an excuse, but in any event, he actually is the smartest one of all these criminals because he was the first one to flip and come clean. And despite the delay in all these years for his memory, he's actually done really good each time. And that stare down with Charlie, I thought was really, really a key thing that that I'm sure the jury picked up on. So so yeah, he's going to be a great witness for them again. Julia again is asking, is it odd well for the well-heeled to hire a lawyer who never tried a murder case before? Charlie tried one and lost, and now Donna. I don't. I think trying cases where you got violence per se. I don't know if it has to be a murder case per se, but if you haven't been in the trenches slugging it out with a lot of witnesses and evidence that the stakes are high, and you basically aren't good at any. You have never proven yourself in any kind of violent crime case, then I would say, yeah, it's you're trying to learn a skill there that is you're not going to know what you don't have a track history of your results. So if you don't have a track history of results, then you might not be any good at it, and you might lose and keep losing. So in any event, they hired who they wanted to hire, so and they paid enough money, so they got the lawyer that they wanted. So it wasn't a money issue. Kathy Burrell is asking how long do you think this trial will really last? I think it'll last a little bit longer than Charlie's trial. I think they are going to call more witnesses for the prosecution and defense. So it may last a couple of days longer. Remains to be seen. A lot of it also is who you calls witness is sort of like a day by day decision or hour by hour decision. You may have some witnesses waiting outside the courtroom, and then you decide not to use them based on the fact that you're going quicker, and you look like the jury's. It looks like the jury's really, you know, settling in well and really absorbing what the prosecution is presenting. So they may decide to go a little bit lighter. I hope they go a little bit more detail than what they've done in the past, because Donna's is a little bit more circumstantial than Charlie's was. And so you want to get on those more of those kind of details, and especially their kind of behavioral characteristics and body language. Uh, Amy, you're asking, why do I think Charlie was called by the state? How could his testimony be beneficial for the state? Well, okay, first of all, he's not been called by the state. He's been listed as a witness, in a Class A witness, so he's subject to being deposed by the defense. But I'm sure they're not going to do that. But he's going to be down there well before the trial starts, and he's going to be in Lane County Jail right there with his mom. And so I think what they want to do is use him as a rebuttal witness in case they try to create some kind of smoke and mirrors defense that Donna was like played by Charlie and she didn't really know anything about this. This was Charlie's racket, not hers. So I think they want to use Charlie to basically bring in some of his other testimony that he testified at his own trial with. And if he tries to deviate from that, then they impeach him. So I think that's what it's for. That's what I'd use it for. And it's a good move. Okay, Carl, do I think Harvey will be in the courtroom to support Donna? I would say that Donna's going to expect him to be there, and so whether he wants to do that and overcome his fear of being arrested, I think there's a chance. I'm leaning towards him more being there than not being there, and I think that it's going to be a good thing. Though it's actually helpful for the jury to see Harvey back there, and they're going to be wondering what's this guy doing back here? Why hasn't he been arrested as well? So there's going to be a lot of head scratching and a lot of some possible frustration and anger of why haven't more of Adelson's been prosecuted sooner. So yes, a star. I agree. Wendy's crying, sobbing was ridiculous. Yeah, it wasn't real crying. It was all fake. And if you need a couple times to look over her review the video of her in her interview with Detective Isom, every time you look at it, you'll come up with another impression that this is not legit. This is completely made up. She knew this was going down. She's not acting surprised, and there's no real shock value there. And really, when you stop to think about it, the first response you have to some terrible news is usually denial. If you look at how she acted, there was no denial. No, you got to have the wrong guy. No, that couldn't have happened, right? There was no denial at all. She's right away accepted it and didn't have any resistance, whatever, because she knew what happened and how it happened. So jury will see that. Yeah, true crime wife. You're asking about how I look with Harvey not there behind her. I think probably the defense counsel want him there. So unless he's subpoenaed as a witness, if he's subpoenaed, he can't sit behind Donna unless he's been permanently excused as a witness. So I think unless he's really called as a witness, which he's not by either side, I don't anticipate. Then I think he's probably going. That's probably an indicator that he's going to be there the whole time. So. Fletcher Boyd, they need to go after him even more so than they did last time. Like I said, bring up more about her book, more about her actions leading up to the murder and afterwards as well. How fast she got out of town. Also go into the fact that they had this high rise set up for her down there in Miami, and like everything was so scripted. The fact that she's looking for a house in Tallahassee, so. I bet if they interview her friends, they'd probably say she never was looking for a house. That was a surprise for them. So, I mean, those are the kind of details you got to go into as a prosecution team, and hopefully they'll bring it out this time. So, yeah, go after the details more on not only Donna, but also Wendy as well. That's going to help build the case. Okay, Sir Tedrick Walker, you said you saw Jeff Lacasse in a police interview saying Wendy was joking about Dan's murder. Have I seen that clip? It was left out when the interview was first released. I think I've heard about that, but I've not seen that. But yeah, that'd be something they should ask him as well if that's actually the case. So yeah, that's definitely again it show that the crying in front of Detective Eisenberg was absolutely faked. Yeah, Cheryl Crawford is saying she didn't ask to see him when she found out he was still alive. Horrible, absolutely disgusting. Remember, she said that's a game changer. Yeah, it is a game changer because your plan for murder might implode, and you guys might be arrested, and Dan might survive. So, yeah, that was definitely a game changer for her, and that's a real revealing admission. So just like she made an admission there in front of Detective Isom in numerous ways, and every hour there's many different nuggets there to extract that help show her involvement. There's also a statement I'm sure she's given to friends. So I really hope they interview all the friends she's had over the years that can really reveal what she said and how she said it and the kind of details she might have revealed. And then what you do is build a case of all these inconsistencies, and that helps show also that a consciousness of guilt, and the person's bobbing and weaving because they can't keep their story straight because they're actually absolutely involved. Yeah, no, I'm not going to Iowa this summer. That's not the plan. Ritz, I agree with you. That would be amazing to have Rob Adelson testify. I hope they call him. That'd be a smart move. I mean, just him being down there is just going to freak out the other Adelsons, and just for that kind of psychological warfare to play on the Adelsons and their lawyers, I would definitely do that. Yeah, Clive. The reason for that, Wendy wasn't wiretapped because they really didn't go after her at all. If you look at the initial search warrants, stuff like that, they pretty much left Wendy out of this, and so they didn't see it for what it was. They got snookered by the interview, and they didn't listen to Jeff Lacasse, so that's why she wasn't wiretapped. They would have had to build a really long detailed example of circumstances showing that she knew and help facilitate this, but they weren't that sophisticated enough and in appreciating the information that was out there. So that's why they missed it and lost out on that. But I think even with Wendy being as paranoid as she was, and the way she sort of, as someone described on a comment I noticed today, that Wendy basically said her tied up her family on railroad tracks and took off. So I think that's sort of a good description. And she knew better than to talk to them, I think. So at least she, from what would be traceable, granted, we know she talked at least 18 to 21 minutes to Charlie when the Geek Squad was there about probably how to create a longer alibi, because the Geek Squad guy was ready to leave by about 8:30, and the murder wasn't supposed to happen until several hours later. So she held up the Geek Squad guy as long as she could. He was there about 40 minutes before he took off. So that also in and of itself shows consciousness of guilt. She's trying to stall the guy there. So they need to call him as witness too, and I don't believe they are doing that. So anyway. Okay, Veronica Schneider, you're saying, can and should Rostrom be investigated and sanctioned for covering up? According to Laura Lee, attorneys are officers of the court who cannot help cover up crimes if they know of that. That is true, but I'm not going to get into that with Daniel Rostrom. I'm not a licensed attorney in Florida, and their ethics rules, despite the fact that they're pretty much universal in all states, those are things that attorneys within that state need to cover and address. And and I would say if the prosecution's not doing that, then there's a reason for that. But so that's all I'm going to say on that. Yeah, Kathy Burrell is asking when he tried to collect on the insurance policy, even knowing that they were divorced. Yeah, it had to do with, of course, the life insurance policy was set up for the kids as beneficiaries, and so the issue is who's going to be the executor of the trust, and that the insurance policy, as my understanding, would have poured into. So my understanding is that Dan's sister Shelley is the one who's handling that. But of course, all the money's got to go to every month, not to minors, but to Wendy. So, and not only that kind of money, but also the Social Security disability that she gets around $5,000 a month for the two boys is just absolutely an outrage. That is so. Think about it. You murder your kid's father and the state pays you 5,000 plus bucks a month. It's really disgusting, isn't it? Ryan B said Isom did an excellent job. He knew if he was confrontational, she'd lawyer up. Days later, she was happy to listen to the cast, detail how he knew she was involved. No, I don't agree. I mean, he got her to talk because he was so, he's very likable as a detective. He doesn't come across obnoxious, very conversational type of detective, which is what you want. So I think she did feel comfortable enough to talk to him. So I do give him credit for that. I just think that he could have used that opportunity to get a lot more details while still acting friendly and acting like he believed her. So 40 minutes is way too short of a window. And but like I say, the guy wasn't experienced doing homicide cases, so he never encountered something like this before with a wealthy family being involved in murder for hire there in Tallahassee, is my estimation. And Nancy's asking, is Donna allowed to be sedated to keep her emotions intact since she's been rather dramatic in the first hearings? Yeah, that probably is the case. I think they can get that through the nurses' bay there at the jail. So that it could very well be the case. But then again, like on different psych meds, you never know how the person would react when they're under the microscope on the witness stand there. Yeah, John's going to be there for the trial. I don't think he's going to be there for jury selection, but once the opening statements begin, he'll be there throughout the whole thing. Yeah, Sarah was really good with Katie, and that would be a good way to really really rattle Wendy, because the last thing you really want to do is have a witness feel comfortable with the person questioning them. So anyway, any strategy tactic you can use to try to rattle them, that's something I would pursue as a prosecutor or defense counsel, whatever side I'm on. If you're trying to rattle a witness, uh, Demira, you're asking, do you think Katie has more to offer in Donna's trial? I do think she will have more to say. I think she'll be a little bit more detailed. But that's just my speculation. I don't have anything to go on. But I think that she was so afraid to talk last time. Hopefully, she's thought about it some more and is willing to give more details than she did last time. But she still, nevertheless, was good enough to help convict Charlie, because she did bring up the issue about the money and the moldy money. Those kind of details were great to see. Yeah, John is on a cruise right now, so he's not here helping me, but he's got all the nice equipment here I'm able to use. So thanks to John. Have a good time, and also thanks, by the way, for my nephew Ben Self Productions for a lot of technical assistance behind the scenes. There he is, right there. So, all right, let's see. Oh yeah, somebody's asking about Court TV. Oh, tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Eastern. I accepted an invite for Court TV. So I didn't ask him who's going to be on it with me because it was just a text. I haven't talked to anyone yet, but we'll see. Hopefully they'll have some better questions. Last time we didn't really have a lot of substantive things to talk about, so hopefully we'll have more substantive things to talk about here tomorrow night. Excuse me. All right, we got a UK visitor coming to the trial there. So wow, that's we haven't seen that before. It was all stateside folks before, but yeah, it's gonna. It's going to be quite a trial. All right. We're not acting like Catwoman's irrelevant. She got everyone convicted. I'm not saying that she's irrelevant. I'm just saying you want to, if you can mix it up and have a strategic, tactical decision that throws off a star witness for your case, why not do it? So I'm not trying to say that Georgia can't handle it. I'm just saying um, if I was calling the shots, I would have Sarah cross Wendy instead of Georgia. So I guess I can say one of the examples I'd give you that I would if I if I had the opportunity to talk to Georgia, I would say that one of the things she could do that would be beneficial is to not do like this where she's holding her pen in her hand and sort of like uh sort of like encouraging the witness to agree to her and stuff like that. I would not have your hands up like that. That's more like I would say more of a submissive move. So if you're going to have your hands up, I'd be pointing at the accused or the witness on the stand, like if it's a Wendy or if it's a Charlie. So I try to be more of a confrontational, aggressive posture like that. I would not have your palms up when questioning someone. So just little things like that. I think um, I would. Have her do differently. And I think I haven't seen Sarah do that kind of stuff. So that's why I say, if you can mix it up and have more of an aggressive advocate on Wendy, that's only a good thing, I would say, to improve a little bit like that. Mandy Strong, you're asking. I know Karen Reed requests a small, tiny courtroom is granted, and that was where they got the idea from. Yeah, it might be, but like I say, in the end of it, I don't think it really bodes well for the defense. So, granted, it still relies on evidence, but if you got witnesses that got to lie to help save the defendant, then a smaller courtroom is not in the defense advantage. Yep, I do got a mouse pad now, so thanks for the alert on that. I had one earlier. I don't know what happened to it, and I forgot to put one on there. So Mary Ratcliffe, you're asking what curious as to what was spent on legal fees. I think between these Adelsons, I would say Wendy's probably spent a couple 100,000 just for having a lawyer show up down there, being available to chat with her, and he has really high rates. You probably have 1.5 million for all of Charlie's expenses. You probably have another close to a million for Donna. So yeah, they're going through they're burning through money pretty quick. All right, let's see here. Vertice G is asking, I'm confused why the state calls a witness. The defense has him on their list too. Can you explain why this is? Why doesn't the defense get to question the state's witness on stand anyway? There can be a number of strategies behind that. One of the main strategies, I think, why Rashbaum did it with Charlie's is because he's got no evidence to present. And if you put all the state witnesses on your list, then it looks like they're helpful to you as well. And it maybe causes confusion for the prosecution. Like, well, why would they want to call the witness I think is helpful to us? So it's just I guess an intimidation tactic to try to get the prosecution to doubt their evidence. And I would say that the same kind of things probably happening with a lot of these other witnesses that Rashbaum's put on. They're not going to call them. They're just trying to make it look like are going to present a defense. But like I say, if the prosecution does a good job of doing a deep dive on what their true relationship is with the Florida Adelsons, I think a lot of these witnesses will run for the hills and not want to cooperate with the subpoena, and they'll beg to be released by the defense. So that's what I'm pretty confident that would happen if I was doing these kind of questionings because they've never been put under any kind of scrutiny. So I put the scrutiny on these witnesses before trial, not during trial. And I think a lot of these character witness friends for Donna, let's say, you got the likability factor there as well. So I think the issue is you're bringing in a bunch of wealthy people from Miami to talk about how great Donna is, or that she did say this or didn't say that, and it's just not going to go over well. So it's like there's no benefit. But they're trying to throw something against the wall, see if it'll stick. So fine, let it happen. It's just not gonna be beneficial, and prevent her from getting convicted. All right, let's see. Letterman's girl, you're saying thoughts. I loved it when Georgia told Wendy Charlie knew all along who the killer was and she didn't know. Her face was dynamite. I hope a redo of that one. Yeah, I just wish you would have gone a lot more details. Really, you found out, when did you find out? And what had your brother told you over all these years? So think about it. Everything Charlie would have told her about the hitmen and doing this and that and the other, all that was fair game on questioning, and none of those questions are brought up at all. So that's what I really like to do is who are the defendants talking to? What are they saying? And when he's on the witness stand like that, I just start probing to those kind of details, not even knowing the answer ahead of time, because you know what? You're going to get some gold nuggets in there, and nobody believed her anyway. That's the first time she knew of Charlie, that Charlie knew who the hitmen were. So in any case, I guess it's not necessary from a win standpoint, but I just don't like leaving those kind of details on the table. Yeah, Amber C agrees with me. Sure, I thought she meant blonde, not blog. All right, let's see. I'm jumping down at 846. We're at 909. Patricia Happ is asking, Carl, what are our top 10 chargeable perjury counts by Wendy? If you just go with the three trials and sort of roll up a whole bunch of them together, different examples, excuse me, of what she actually said, and dodged and weaved and outright lied about. There's just so many examples you could give. So I wouldn't be looking for 10 charging perjury counts of each time she lied. I'll just roll them up under one charge and have, like, on various occasions on such and such trial she lied, and then give the specifics of what she lied about, and just leave it at that. But I would leave it in. I guess I'd leave it and put in enough detail for those are the kind of details you do want to admit at trial, because you do want to get her videotapes of her testifying into evidence. LRM is saying Wendy has proven to lie under oath. Doesn't this waive her immunity? It trumps her immunity. Yeah. So if you basically are called as a witness on a murder trial and you repeatedly lie about material things, then you could be charged and you should be charged and prosecuted for that. And it trumps your immunity. And the immunity sticks unless it can be proven that you lied. So I think that, as I've said before, that would be a smart move to charge her with perjury as well, as the same charges Donna and Charlie were charged with. Lori Smith, you're asking how long Charlie's trial was. You don't recall. I think it was around like 10 days or less, 8 to 10 days, maybe. I'm thinking more like 10. So I think her trial will be around 10 to 11, 12 days is my guess. Yep, TV for 5. The TV code thing is a big deal. I think they're really going to have some good rollout presentations of the code that that's going to help sink not only Donna but also Wendy. Those are really damning against both them. Jim Parsons, you're asking why I think Sigfredo's being quiet. That's really bizarre. There's so many bizarre twists and turns in this case from a true crime perspective that you just don't see in the normal real world. This many people collectively making so many bad decisions and making bad decisions with the assistance of many lawyers as well. So it is very bizarre. In this particular case, we know his lawyer tried to get him to flip, but Sigfredo, for whatever reason, could not see the light and do the right thing to cut him a deal. I mean, look at a great deal Luis got. He probably wouldn't have gotten the same type of one, given the fact that he was a trigger puller. But he's never going to see his kids again. He's never going to be out to see the light of day. He's going to be a lifer there in prison. So that's where he belongs. And he could have cut a deal and gotten something better. But if you're not willing to cooperate, and he's not going to have as much detail probably to give anyway as Luis. I don't think he had that much interaction with the Adelsons, so it'd probably be limited anyway. But you think he would do everything in his power to flip? I mean, that's what I'd be doing if I was a lawyer on a case like this and he was my client. And I know his attorney tried, but it's a really a head scratcher, isn't it? Patty L is asking, do I think it'll be easier or more difficult to get a conviction on Donna? I don't think it's going to be difficult. I think there is more circumstantial evidence, but if you just package it the right way and bring in those kind of details we talked about, it's going to be fine. So I wouldn't use the word difficult. I think it's going to be a open and shut case, and I look forward to that. Yeah, Lord Pender saying the keys to this trial are motive and family feud as a background for number one. Number two is the Best Buy Geek Squad plan. 3 is the bump. 4 is Donna paying the money and writing all the checks. And 5 is Donna's text to Wendy and jail calls. So I think that the real motive needs to really be played up even more so in this case, bringing out more of the details of the book, bringing out the fact that Wendy was in fear for not only her licensure with the state bar, but also was looking at accusations where she could be held in contempt of court, and that Dan had the power over her to get her fired from her job. So those are really huge things I would focus on more on, and bring out Stephen Webster even more details. Stephen Webster is giving out even more details in interviews with folks like Judy from AA Legal. So I wish those kind of details would come out in this trial. He was not asked enough detailed questions on the stand last go around. Okay, law and lit. Can't be too aggressive. Backfire. One of the jurors for Katie's hung jury said she found Georgia too harsh and sympathized with Katie. Okay, well, this is the one that that held out. It was 11-1 to convict Katie, and this is a person with like either purple or pink hair, and thought that 2 parents shouldn't be convicted. And so basically, what happened is that this is an example of not being detailed enough on your jury selection, and somebody that's comes across that way will have some radical ideas. So no, it's not being too aggressive. And I think if you poll the other jurors, they'd say the exact same thing, which is, Georgia's not too aggressive. I've never seen Georgia too aggressive. Okay. So that's my opinion on it. So yeah, you can be too aggressive. I mean, if you're going to get loud and obnoxious and act unprofessional, yeah, then that can backfire. Definitely. I agree with you, but I've never seen Georgia act anything but professional and classy. And I mean, she's just very likable, as well as Sarah. They're very likable, I think, from a juror's perspective. And so I think that's what they got going for them. I think that's the number one asset you can have as a trial attorney, is you got to have a likability about you. If you come across bad and people don't like the way you talk to them or talk down to them, or use too big of words, and just your whole body language comes across, and you're basically getting caught in not being accurate what you try to bring out of witnesses in your arguments and stuff like that. So your credibility is on the line too as an attorney, and a lot of cases are won and lost based on credibility of attorneys. So um, anyway, I think with George and Sarah, they definitely have the credibility factor and likability factor. So they're going to do great. I have no questions about that. Lily Flores asking, do I think that Rashbaum or Alex will be questioning Katie and Luis? Rashbaum was nicer to Luis than he was to Katie. I mean, Rashbaum realized that you don't want to go toe to toe with Luis because he could really sink you fast, and just like he did the stare down with Charlie and stuff like that. He's one tough dude, and I think Rashbaum doesn't want to face that. So yeah, it might be Alex that does the questioning for Luis, and and then I would say, I don't. I'm not really concerned about who does it for either one of these witnesses. I think either way, they're not going to get mileage out of it. So I'll just leave it at that. I've already talked about whether Wendy will be on the stand. Excuse me, whether Donna will take the stand or not. More likely than not, that I think she'll get on the stand there. YB. Yeah, that's an example. Sarah crossing Katie in the second trial also helped convict her. They got a hung jury in the first one. So I don't think it would have mattered with that one juror, though. No matter what you would have done, just the mere status of two parents being tried and the jury have the option to convict both of life without parole is something that that juror would not have an open mind to. So it was basically dead on arrival. Didn't matter how strong a case they proved. Lord Pender, yeah, we John and I have talked about that. Yeah, why didn't Harvey just get on the plane and get the heck out of there? But in any event, Kaylee O'Brien. Okay, just joined. Oh, sorry, I don't need to say that. You did ask, why don't they put Harvey on the stand? Well, done testify. Well, because Harvey would get destroyed as a witness. He's got nothing. He's got nothing that is going to be truthful testimony about whatever Donna's defense is going to be, and about this, double extortion, quote unquote, ridiculous plot that was against him. And he's going to have to say, his wife didn't tell him about this, or she did tell him about it. And he just sat there on his hands and didn't do anything and didn't confer with anybody about how to go about this. He never called the police either. So, I mean, the whole thing is just so the most ridiculous defense you could ever see. You will never see a more ridiculous defense than Charlie Adelson's, and that's going to have the spillover effect to his other family members there as well. All right, Liz Elwood is asking if I believe if Wendy had not been told he won't make it, would she have been as talkative? Um, yeah, that probably. Let me think about that. If he didn't tell her he wasn't going to make it, he's been shot or he's been injured or something. Um, I think I think she was nervous either way. I think she assumed he would die, and I think that um, I don't think that would have made that much difference in what he told her about that. I think her reaction would be different, and saying we wouldn't make it. I think it forced her to have this more of a phony fake cry going on. Yeah, strength and justice for the Markells, definitely. Okay, Dave McGinnis is saying, unfortunately, I really don't think they'll go after Wendy. Okay, that's fine. They will. There's been too many indicators of that, and folks have been saying they'll never go after her now, or even saying they'll go after her. I mean, look at all the local attorneys that saying they're going after her. I mean, we had, excuse me, Even the district attorney told Patty Playhouse that he intended to prosecute. So and they're building a case against her. So uh, I would just say that all the momentum is building, and there's pressure. There's public pressure as well that these other Florida Adelsons. Um, well, I guess I'm including Wendy as being from Florida, even though she's not anymore. But um, anyway, all right. Julia Nielsen saying I was a student speculating Wendy may have had a garage opener still and was going to drive by it to close it. That actually was that was actually somebody else that brought that up to my attention. So I can't take the credit for that. And like I say, you guys collectively, there's so many smart people that are so knowledgeable about this case. Collectively, you guys know so much that's very beneficial, and I think that's why the state attorney's office does keep track of not only comments like mine, but also other channels as well as your comments as well. So yeah, definitely Wendy seemed panicked when she told he may be alive. That's indeed the truth. Kayla O'Brien have said yes, definitely the Markells should be called to testify to humanize Dan, number one. And they're the best witnesses to talk about the denial of visitation. So, and that's part of the motive, right? One of the huge motive factors was the denial of visitation. So why wouldn't you call the the Markells? I mean, they got to fly all the way in from Toronto, just be watching the trial and then not be called, and then just testify over Zoom for the sentencing. That doesn't make any sense to me. And anyway, that's my take on it. The Sarah at 7:30, you're asking, what are your thoughts on Georgia repeatedly questioning Wendy on whether she communicated with Catherine McBanwell via phone or text messages when he said she only met with her in person the 2 or 3 times? Because they probably have some of those texts, and they're wanting to lock her in on that. I'm so tired of asking why are they giving Wendy Adelson plenty of time to leave? Well, I think that she's not going to leave while she's still under subpoena, and so I think the real time that she would flee is after her mom's convicted, and but hopefully they got folks in place that can move quickly to hurry up and have the arrest warrant ready to go. Hopefully it's ready to go right now, right? That'd be nice if they're sitting on the murder indictment and they just haven't released it yet with the arrest warrant. Brian Lucas, you're asking, what do I think Wendy actually knew and facilitated? You'd have to go back and look at a video that John and I did. It wasn't a live stream, but it was basically a rolling slide presentation. I also gave some details on much better list that I went through and did much better cross referencing on. But that one was one I did on surviving the survivor. And I actually have not done that list on this channel, and that's something that I actually been working on recently. And so I will. That's something I may bring out. I'm just not sure about it. Okay, so, but that's that could be something that that I want to follow up on. Okay, let's see. Okay, Sir Tedrick Walker is asking, do I think all the long pauses that Georgia uses against Wendy rattles her? I think it. I don't think it rattles her as much as I'd prefer to have more rapid fire questioning where she can't try to regain her thoughts and think how she's going to deflect the next question. So And I think Georgia's taking pauses because she's like reading the script and figuring out how to jump around in there. That's why I've said many times I don't like attorneys that go through this the line by line the questions they're gonna ask a witness, especially a absolutely critical witness like Wendy Adelson, because what you want to do is have the ability to have that flexibility to ask questions based on what they give you for little deep dive rabbit trails you can go down and really have them blow up in their face. And if you're too much script handicap, then you're going to lose those opportunities. Just like when Charlie said that when asked about why the TV code was brought up by his mom, he said, "Oh, that's a bad choice of words." I mean, Wendy should have been really cross-examined. Oh, excuse me, I'll take that back. The questioning should have really been probably you could have gone a half hour on that if Georgia would have thought of it, but I think she's too tight to her script. But that's something that could really humiliated Charlie is having a deep dive on that one thing alone. But like I say, if you're bound to a script, you're going to miss out on some of those gold nuggets that they hand you. All right, let's see. I'm going to jump ahead here. I'm my 9:03. We're not. I'm still 20 some minutes behind. Sorry about that. You guys got a lot of good questions. Out and about. What is the penalty for knowing what occurred? I would say the drive-by prices, pieces she knew. I think you mean to say, how does that equate in criminal? Just knowing about a crime about to take place is not, in most circumstances, a chargeable offense. But you have to be doing something as a co-principal or aid or abettor to assist to be charged as an equal to the person that actually was a trigger puller. So in this case, there is plenty of details, like I mentioned, that John and I covered and I've covered on Survivor that goes into her involvement in that. So it's it's really comprehensive. There's so many details that you could easily come up with. Off the top of my head, like 200 details that indicate she had prior knowledge and was demonstrating consciousness of guilt. Mr. Betsy, you're asking the latest paperwork signed by Jack Campbell with George's name underneath. Will Mr. Campbell be trying the case against Donna too? I don't think he will. I think that's just their normal template where it's his signature block, but Georgia signs below. That's what I remember reading. So no, I don't see him trying this case at all. Veronica is right. The small courtroom isn't going to change the evidence. Is this going to make Donna closer and her witnesses closer to the jury to scrutinize them better? Yeah, JC, I agree with that. I mean, why would they wouldn't call him? I've talked about that on like I don't know several shows back. They really need to call Phil and Ruth, and also to humanize their son Dan, right? And you can't go into this. It's not going to be a sentencing type character. What a great guy he was. What a great father he was. All kind of stuff. But just get him on the stand. Really, just to identify him and say, um, where he lived, establish that he lived in that house and that kind of stuff, and some of the interactions they had with the Adelsons, and go into a lot of details. So, but they haven't really gone into that many details last time. I think they will some more this time, and so yeah, I think they are getting better each time. I believe she can collect until they're 18. Each of them turns 18. So it's a number of years still left that taxpayers are paying for the boys. It's just so outrageous. I did see a comment earlier. I meant to go back to it. Somebody's asking about what really fired him up was the fact that the ring that was from a Holocaust survivor on the Markel side of the family, Wendy never gave that back. So yeah, that's something that's really going to come back to bite her at a jury. And so there is the saving grace for that is that's going to come out at our trial, and that's really going to look bad for her. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about cosmetic surgery for Donna. I'm not really up on that, nor do I really care to find out what the ground truth of that is. Yeah, I do think Katie will say a little bit more, maybe not that much more than last time, but I think she'll be a little bit more uh, talkative than last time. Nancy's asking, do I believe the state has evidence that Adelson's paid for Katie's attorney? That could be one of the angles that not that they actually paid, because supposedly Katie's sister embezzled millions of dollars that maybe could have been used to fund the defense, but we don't know exactly what was paid yet. It hasn't been disclosed. But even the offer to pay among those different attorneys and how the attorneys try to circle the wagons and prevent the prosecution from having any cooperating witnesses from the all the co-conspirators. I would say the that kind of evidence is very very damning for Donna. Mary Jane Bianco's asking if I think they'll dress up Donna like a sweet old lady and try to get the jurors to feel pity. Yeah, it doesn't matter how they dress her up or how they try to coach her. I mean, the real Donna's going to come out, and that's what's going to really going to matter. And if they try to paint her as a sweet little old lady, think about it. She doesn't act that old. She acts very aggressive and get very hot headed. And this thing, the jury's going to think back to those emails, even though they're 10 years old. They're going to look at that, and it's just going to be game over for her. Like I say, the hate is off the charts, and they follow the hate, and that leads them to her doorstep of these Florida Adelsons. Okay, let's see. Veronica Schneider, you're asking about the Markells to testify because that they could talk about the Adelson's behavior at the event in Tallahassee after Dan's death. Yeah, I think that could be helpful. The fact that they said they could see the boys. Next thing you know, they skipped out of town. They basically just drop kicked Phil and Ruth and Shelley, and it was so obvious they were trying to duck and run from not only the police but from letting the boys see their grandparents from Canada and their aunt from Canada. So yeah, very very incriminating behavior. So yeah, I would bring that as well. Totally, those kind of details help. Melvin Monkers, you said purple haired juror interview said she felt it was unfair, only minorities getting charged, so said not guilty. I think that was a factor as well. So yeah, that's something you got to take into account. The optics of it as a prosecutor. Does it look like you're only targeting the racial ethnic minorities or not? So yeah, I mean that's why I would say they should have had more Adelsons charged, and come in there, have Charlie come in there in his jail suit when when he's ordered to testify as well for the others trials, or try them all together. I mean, you got to do something to not make it look that way. So yeah, the optics and how you look in terms like this is not anything having anything to do with um, the racial components of people, but it has to do totally with justice and who's responsible for the murder. Matilda too. Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't call them. It's really bizarre. I don't get it, but it's strange to me. There's not a good reason I would not call them. Serendipity is asking, is Georgia holding back and only asking when necessary questions during these trials and saving all she can for when these trials so that these new questions will not fall under immunity? No, the questions will not be falling under immunity because she's not disclosed anything of how she was involved in the case. So I would not hold back at all when you go after this next time. If you want to save a few nuggets for her own trial, fine. But I mean, you got so much more you can work with, and I mean, you could have her on the stand for hours and hours and hours, and you just have her flip flopping all over the place, looking like an absolute disaster. And by that I mean helping the prosecution prove that she was involved. Kayla O'Brien, you're saying like Georgia or Sarah really depressed Wendy about the ring, the contempt of court, the OK Cupid, et cetera, all that stuff that shows her true nature, just like when she got in her jibber spell. Yeah, I agree with that. Put her on the hot seat. Don't let her get away with thinking she can walk out of that courtroom feeling like she didn't have a glove laid on her. I think that was different this last go around. She realized that she got caught in a number of lies, and so yeah, that's. I think that she's going to have a different take on it, and be absolutely terrified to come in that courtroom this time. She doesn't. She's not going to come out looking any better than she did last time. I think it's going to way worse. I don't think Donna's going to have a cane or a walker to try to gain sympathy from the jury. So I think trying to fake something like that, I don't see that happening. But with her lawyers allowing that. Sir Chedrick Walker is saying Latin Kings are the biggest gang in the United States. I am not tracking that, but I'll do some research on that. Esther Moon is asking if Rashomon will be as nasty as he was to Katie on the stand this time. You know, I don't think it scored him any points, and I think his tone just didn't come across well, and he didn't come across as likable doing that. So who knows? And who knows what he's going to do? I can't predict. I can't predict what kind of bad tactics he'll use. I mean, none of his tactics really that I found any. I can't think of a single tactic that he used that I thought was a good takeaway. As a if I was trying to mentor somebody on how to be a good trial attorney, I can't think of any off the top of my head. It'd probably rather be a pointer on what not to do. But then again, like I say, you don't have a good case to win. But yeah, I'll be filing the Brightingham case. I have not looked at that in a while, but I will. I plan to be up to speed on that, start covering it. Very similar to the facts of this case, rich people trying to gun down an ex over disputes with child rearing. Got Leo here attacking my foot. Well, Meredith's 2 cents is asking how they can make Charlie testify the same way they made Wendy testify. The only difference is Charlie could just say, I refuse to cooperate. And if he says, I'm not going to testify, you can hold me in contempt. They would not put him in front of a jury and have him say, I'm not going to cooperate. I'm not going to testify. I just don't see that happening. They would do that outside the presence of the jury if he says, I don't intend to cooperate. So jury's not going to see that part of it. But anyway, it'll be quite the fireworks if Charlie does get on the witness stand. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go a couple more witnesses here. Questions here. Sorry. I'm not going to talk about mental health diagnoses of Adelson's. You can't do that at trial as a prosecutor, so I'm not going to do that here. As a defense counsel, I do bring up mental issues of the prosecution witnesses when it's appropriate, but you never do that as a prosecution. To try to, it's just not relevant. You'd have a mistrial if you start going into psychological diagnoses of the defendant, unless, of course, insanity defense is raised, then it's totally fair game, which is not going to be the case here. Star Moon, you're asking, is there more evidence against Wendy than Harvey? Oh, absolutely. And do I think the state has more damning evidence against Wendy that we don't know? Yeah, there's definitely more evidence we don't know about. They brought out more evidence against Wendy the last trial. I think we'll see some more of that as well. And I did say in a live stream a couple months ago about the evidence against Harvey. So it's not anywhere as strong as it is for Wendy. It is for Harvey, but there's enough for Harvey there to roll him up as well. Thanks, Lord Pender. You're saying on my indicators of involvement video that John and I did. It's really not the best indicators that I came up with. I came up with better ones on Survivor. But if we want a basic primer that I did on a quick visit when I was at John's house, then you could check that out. LJ, I think you're right. The Nazi uniforms email to Wendy are going to crush her at trial. Absolutely. In his will, says that Dan's mom would be a great witness, calm and articulate. I totally agree with that. Okay, Teresa M., you're saying we can't screw this up or take anything for granted. This tell us cliffhanger should be a warning for all prosecutors. Well, I don't. The jury's still deliberating, so I don't think we've heard anything yet, have we? And I don't know anything about that case. Okay, so I'm not gonna be in a position to comment one way or the other. Yeah, apparently Wendy moved to Austin. I've not been tracking channels to see if that's actually the case or not, but I assume it's the case. They got some cousins out there. Katrina T, you're asking, when a person gets life without parole, how many weeks, months in prison does it take for them to fully realize they're not getting out? I think, thankfully, I've had scores of clients, defendants that were facing life without parole, and thankfully none of them got life without parole. And so I would say that if they did have life without parole, I mean, the longer that Charlie's there, the more it's going to eat on him. And once his mom gets convicted, I think he's going to lose his mind and really go become unhinged and start acting really crazy. So what is he going to do? I don't know. It could be, like I say, he could decide to end his life. It could be, I'm going to flip on Wendy. I don't care about anything anymore. Or else he may just try to say, stay hunkered down and see how the appeal works before he decides to go on the attack against Wendy. But well, it'll be interesting to see. No one knows for sure. Agent 47, you're asking about why Wendy moved to Texas, that you heard it's hard to get her to testify if she's not physically. No, they're going to get her to testify there. She's already been subpoenaed before she left. So will show back up to testify against her mom. And so, I mean, part of it could be the Markel Act. And so I think it's just a little bit, I think she's probably scared in Florida. There's so many people that know about her in Florida. The Latin Kings have probably more of a local presence and connection to Luis Rivera there. So she's got to run somewhere. And so I think the family issue in Texas, if she does get arrested, the boys could just stay with the cousins there, or at least that's her plan. Yeah, Wendy, I think by the end of the year will be arrested. Austin's probably about a couple hours away from the border, probably about 3.5 hours, I would say. They could take I-35, which is going through Dallas down into Austin, and then from there it goes on down to Laredo, I believe. So, yeah, Veronica, John and I plan to cover some of these other cases well. Don't know about the Sarah Boone or Corey Richens cases yet, but remains to be seen. There's so many crazy cases out there that'd be interesting to cover, right? Okay. Yeah, Sally Turner saying it's 650 miles from the Mexican border. I don't think it's that far, so I could be wrong, but I haven't driven there. I've flown there before for a case, so it wasn't a long flight at all. Yeah, see there, that's more what I'm thinking. Daniel Rikers is pretty close, 250 to 75 miles. That's what I call it being. Yeah, Mr. Betsy, I was asking that as well. I did a freedom of information request through the law enforcement division for the basically the Bureau of the State Police Bureau up there in Tallahassee, but I just pretty much got a non-responsive, convoluted answer that was sort of frustrating. It's probably because it's with the FBI. They probably sees it, don't want it released or something, because they probably took the lead on that. Okay, I'm going to let's see, take a couple more questions. I'm so tired. You're asking, how does Donna explain these emails that she's wrote instructing Wendy to do her best acting? I'm not going to help them couch an answer for these, but like I say, there's no good answers you can give, and anything she says is not going to come across as credible. Number one, and it's not going to come across as likable for Donna. So Donna's pretty much toast as a likable, credible witness if she gets on the stand. If she doesn't get on the stand, they're going to form their own opinion. And just hearing her on the wiretaps are such cringy moments throughout all that. As if I was her defense attorney, I'd be like, this is so bad, so bad. This is not good. So there's not much to work with. Yeah, Katrina, I agree that you're saying Wendy lied on stand when she said the boys had countless visits with the boys, and you hope Georgia brings that up with when she better bring that up, and bring up the fact that she lied in the previous trial about that. I think she used to Georgia used the word like unfettered access or something like that, and that's what Wendy confirmed. So definitely, I would be calling the Adelsons out on that, and bring in the Markells. And if you want to, at least bring in the Markells on rebuttal. But yeah, I'd really put them on the case in chief as some of the first witnesses right out the gate. Van, if you're asking, can they use the jail calls between Donna and Charlie where they talk about the jury, for example? I would say that some of that stuff is like sort of inflammatory when he's trash talking the jurors up there. I mean, that's like so inflammatory, and he could get convicted on that, and not so much the evidence because he sounds so contemptuous of folks from Tallahassee. So I think a lot of that will not be attempt to be admitted by the prosecution, and they just want to play it safe and not try to create some kind of reversible error. And you don't need it to get a conviction. Thanks for staying up till 3:35 in Northern Ireland. There, Liz Elwood, supporting the justice cause here. Hey, Johnson, you're asking if they had text messaging Wendy and Katie at the time of Charlie's trial. Could the state keep it secret until Wendy's trial? If not, what do we know? But I think they would have turned that over already by now. I think we'd have seen that. So I think that's always a possibility. But I would say you would think that would come out in earlier cases. But this case has so many strange twists and turns and head scratching moments. So you never know for sure. Geist Troop, you're saying, is it true that if Harvey took the stand and pleaded the fifth, it would cause a mistrial? What happens is he's not going to get up on the stand and plead the fifth. What happens is if somebody's going to plead the fifth, they normally have their lawyer there to do it, and the lawyer's going to advise the judge outside the presence of the jury that the client's going to invoke the fifth. And then if the Harvey's subpoenaed by the state, the judge will instruct him, well, he doesn't have a right to invoke the fifth based on the statute. That's given him limited immunity. And if he still refuses to, then the judge would probably hold him in contempt right then and there, and he'd be hauled out of the courtroom, and the jury would never know anything about that. So that's the way that would really work. So, in any event, I think Harvey would cooperate if forced to testify, but doesn't look like he's ever going to be called by either party. Rick Rodriguez, you're asking what I think about Donna's role in this whole situation reveals about the dynamics of power and influence within families. Yeah, I think if you have too much of a group think, you don't have any like cooler heads to prevail, any common sense folks to bounce ideas off of. You're all on this you just have this unmitigated hatred of them, anything Markel's. You want to strip the boys of anything having to do with their dad. You want their dad having a brutal execution in his own garage, and you just have no heart. You have no concern whatsoever for how this will ruin the boys' lives. The boys' lives are forever tragically affected by this, and yet to the Adelsons, obviously they don't care. They don't care about the boys. They don't care about Dan. They don't. All they care about is like we want things to work out in our favor. And Donna says that that Dan hasn't seen the end of it, and I forget the exact wording, but she basically said that they don't quit, and they're not gonna take no for an answer. So this is what they did. They upped the ante to the ultimate, most despicable, heinous way of trying to settle a custody dispute, and it's one that she was going to lose. So they said, you know what, we're not going to let the legal system just dictate what we want to have done. So it's this total entitlement mentality, and they thought they could resort to murder and have absolutely zero concern for the boys. And so keep in mind also that these folks are popping pills. We hear about Xanax being used a lot. Xanax is one of the quicker acting benzodiazepines, and I know that we've heard so much about that that also can affect people's mood and aggression as well. And it can also make people homicidal or suicidal as well. So we don't know the exact dynamics of that, and we never will. But that could have some influence as well in these folks making such absolutely reckless, cruel decisions to do what they did to not only Dan but also to their grandchildren and nephew and also son. Um, um, True crime wife, you're asking if there's a sealed indictment for Wendy and they wait till after she testifies to Donald Trump to arrest her. What would that look like? How would it go down? Well, basically, they did create a warrant for arrest after a true bill came back from the grand jury for all the same counts that Donna and Charlie were both charged with and convicted of for Charlie's case, and also hopefully they'd add a bunch of perjury charges on as well for Wendy, and then basically she'd be held without bond, and she could try to fight for bond later, some kind of pretrial release, but that would be denied, just like it was for Charlie and Donna, and then she'd have to have a trial at like a year and a half down the road. Or let's see what. Quinn is asking, what does the state have on Harvey, and why didn't they arrest him as they attempted to flee? Okay, I had a video a couple months ago. It just exclusively focused on Harvey. There's a picture there of Harvey on the left on the thumbnail, and on the right side, John and Ben created a bullseye target. And I said, is his title something like the targeting of the state is targeting Harvey Adelson, something like that. So that's where I covered it exclusively. You can see how much they have on him and why they didn't arrest him. I think they were so just trying to make sure they got Donna that they didn't have a chance to focus on Harvey. And stop thinking their sequence here is that we've seen is they're only doing one Adelson at a time, and they won't do a second one until the one that's under arrest is and prosecution is convicted. So it's sort of like they don't have the confidence in the case or themselves or both. And also politics, that's really prevented a lot, I think, from happening over the years. But things are moving quicker, thankfully, and hopefully won't any issues with lack of witnesses availability. Brian Lucas, you're asking what's the perfect people for a juror here. I don't really want to get into that. I don't want to tip off the defense of what to counter for the prosecution, or am I going to help defense? But I think you're going to have for the prosecution. I think it's obvious that they don't want to have somebody like they had before with the pink or purple hair. It's people that have sort of that anarchy type mindset. That's really bad for the prosecution and good for the defense. So I think they're learned their lesson on that. Crystal Star, you're asking, do I think there's any chance Donna will implicate Wendy during the trial? No, I do not think that is possible. I think she's going to be, on one hand, emotionally wanting to do that, but I think she's going to try to make the Adelsons look pure and innocent of all this, that they're not the type of people to do this, that kind of thing. So anyway, that's just not going to come across as believable to a jury. And I don't think she's going to point the finger at Charlie. So remains to be seen what kind of crazy defense they come up with. Becky Ireland, you're asking, how can Charlie Adelson testify when he and Donna have Rashbaum as attorney? Yeah, so even though that Rashbaum is a quote unquote former lawyer of Charlie, that he still has the ethical duty to zealously represent his interests. And so if he's going to testify against his mom, and say things again that are directly implicating his mom, and that does pose an ethical problem that could be an appellate issue. So that's why I wish there would have been better scrutiny of Donna waiving that conflict. And it may not be waivable conflict. This is like a big, huge red flag, a big red appellate flag that hopefully won't be an issue, because this Charlie's not going to try to flip on his mother. And because as soon as Charlie says, I want to start cooperating and testifying against other Florida Adelsons, including my mom, then they're not going to have a trial in next month for Donna. Donna's going to, unless they refuse to talk to the state, refuse to talk to Charlie about his interest in cooperating. That conflict is such a major, huge Achilles heel that they're going to have to start all over, and Rashbaum would have to withdraw. Even in the other counsel, Alex Morris would have to withdraw. It's just a complete disaster, hot mess from justice being done, and so that's really bizarre. Another thing about like this case, it's just so whacked out, crazy. The actions of different people. It just really makes this case an interesting one to follow, but also at the same time a really frustrating one to follow. But in the end, I'm hoping it's not going to matter, and that the convictions will stick, and Charlie won't want to flip until after Donna's trial is over. So that'd be the best way to try to isolate that. Yeah, this case is very disturbing on so many different levels, isn't it? So anyway, all right, I'm going to go for one more last witness here. It's 10 o'clock local time here. That's what I'm laughing at right here. Some funny comments here. All right, let's see. Jumping ahead here almost to got your six is saying, did it appear to you that Rashbaum was defending Wendy while Charlie was on set? Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're all locking heels. They're all trying to protect each other. And that's why part of the reason why I would have gone after Adelson's all at one time and rolled them all up and gone after all these folks that participated in the murder, either right at the same time or within a month or two after each other. After you indict one, go after the other, and keep going up the chain until you get them all. So in any event, Well, thanks for y'all for following this case and just for the Markells. And I will be covering, I intend to cover the live stream for the case Friday. If I can't do the live stream, I'll at least cover it that night and discuss it on this Friday night. That's my game plan. So hope to see you then. And thank you for your support for the Markells. Have a great night.